Titans, go!
Again, everyone. Welcome back to Titan Talk, the Titans podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, back in Titans Tower. Oh, wait, no, I'm not, because people still aren't wearing your masks. You got to be safe and got to be smart, people. Trust me on this. But thankfully, I'm joined once again by my wonderful co-host and fellow Titan Talker, well, or at least fellow Doom Patroller, as we talk the third episode of Doom Patrol Season 2, DJ Nick. So glad you can join me once again to talk about Doom Patrol. How are you, sir?
Charles. Hey, Charles. I'm doing fantastic, and I do agree with it. It seems like in Italy, folks are still kind of keeping their heads and still behaving.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's going to continue to be that way. And, yeah, I was kind of keeping an eye out on what was going on in the States, and it is a little bit troubling, to say the least.
Just a little bit. So, can you maybe send more Italians over here somehow, or have them Skype everybody that they can possibly get their hands on to get the message across? Because we're not getting it here. Apparently, we're very thick and we're very dumb about this. So,
but you know what is odd? It's for once Italy is actually not the butt end of a joke. For once, we're actually taking us seriously.
Exactly. See, we felt so bad, so therefore we decided to lower ourselves to help elevate you in your country,
which is much appreciated.
Exactly.
It definitely needs that right now.
We're raising Italy up in the process of tearing ourselves down to bits.
I'm kind of basking in that moment of folks are actually praising Italy. I'm enjoying it while it lasts.
I would, if we ever actually had reason to celebrate here, I would definitely take advantage of that. Yes. All right, but enough of that nonsense. Well, sort of nonsense. So, yes, here at episode 53, Nick and I are going to be discussing Pain Patrol, which of course is the third episode of Doom Patrol Season 2. Aired back on June 25th, 2020, as part of the 3 episodes that were given out all at once, that Nick and I both binged watch, probably back to back to back, because they're so good.
Yep.
And this episode, I think, is no exception. I've really enjoyed this episode a lot. This episode written by Tom Farrell, who wrote the Season 1 episodes Puppet Patrol, Danny Patrol, and Flex Patrol. And he wrote this episode along with Tamara Becker-Wilkinson, who wrote Puppet Patrol, Doom Patrol Patrol, Flex Patrol, and Ezekiel Patrol. And got to get a little bit more creative with those episode titles, guys.
And use the patrol after a while.
Exactly. I'm still waiting for Patrol. Where are we getting that episode?
That might be the season finale, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. This episode directed by Samira Radzi, who is a new director to the series, which I thought was kind of interesting, but thought Samira did a fabulous job here with this one, as we get the introduction of Roger Floyd as Red Jack, a character I've been waiting for on this show for quite a while. I've talked about this a little bit. But I was very happy. And, Nick, before we get into our main topics and a little bit of trivia on Red Jack, what were your general thoughts about this episode? Did you enjoy it?
Forward to re-watching it because I enjoyed it so much on my first watch, and obviously in preparation for the podcast. I said to myself, okay, I have to rewatch it, and I enjoyed it immensely. Granted, some folks might criticize the fact that this is the second consecutive kind of new villain we have. It's kind of like the new monster of the week or villain of the week. But, I can see that. I can see that argument. But at the same time, I think more than just being a villain of the week, it does help also advance the story, as in it helps show us more about the characters, helps flesh out things about the characters even more so. So it does serve a purpose rather than just throwing a villain at us. And I very much enjoyed it, especially also the introspective moments. Aside from what we got with Red Jack and stuff, just the introspective and the back and the flashbacks, and also I think the relationships between the various characters, I thought it was a very, very strong episode.
Yeah, you bring up some great points, especially the flashback that we get in this episode, which obviously we're going to discuss, between Larry and Rita as we get the story of their first meeting. And when Larry arrives at Doom Manor, which I think is going to be a lot of fun to talk about. And then, like you said with Red Jack, he serves a purpose here because he's kind of continuing the Chief's quest for that search for immortality. Yeah. And it's something that Red Jack dangles over the Chief in an attempt to make the Chief his apprentice, which obviously is something else we'll talk about. But it's something that is very tempting to the Chief. And Red Jack seems to know this and is more than happy to exploit that. Which, of course, hey, he's the bad guy, so why not, right? That's what bad guys do. So a little bit of trivia on Red Jack before we get started. He's only appeared in 2 comic books.
Wow.
He's only appeared in Doom Patrol's Volume 2, number 23, and this issue I'm holding in my hands right now, which obviously you out there in podcast land cannot see, but I'm showing it to Nick. Doom Patrol number 24.
It looks beautiful, and the live version of the character totally reflects the artwork.
Right, exactly. It's a little different because in the comic books, Red Jack, is basically this kind of mask that's hovering over his body.
Yeah, they exaggerate it on the live version. It kind of had flesh kind of sticking out on one side of his face,
which I was okay with.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's obviously a more budgetary saving device because obviously you'd have to do a little bit more with the effects. But I'm okay with that because I thought, Roger Floyd looked great, better than I could have probably hoped, especially in a Greg Berlanti production. So, which tends to be either hit or miss with a lot of the costumes.
But I actually want to ask you something about this,
sure.
Charles, because I have not had the pleasure yet of meeting Red Jack on the printed page. But having made such a big impact on you said he only makes 2 appearances in the comics. But I assume they must be pretty impactful appearances for you to have fallen so madly in love with this character.
Well, I think what happened was it was so early in Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol run that it just became very memorable. To me, this story, it was only a 2-part story, so a 2-issue story, but obviously here it's kind of truncated down to 45 minutes, not even including taking out all the time for all the other flashbacks and other characters. But I love the imagination of it. I love Morrison's and the artist Richard Case. I love their conceptualization of the character. Morrison essentially developing this character as someone claiming to be God.
Right.
But whether he's the real God or not, who knows? Doubtful. But someone that apparently feeds off of pain. And that's what kind of fuels him. And so if anything, he's a god of pain. And which probably outranks Sting's King of Pain just a little bit, if you're a Police fan like me. And, he feeds off that suffering, so he basically comes to Earth every so often. One time, at one point in the 19th century, he posed as Jack the Ripper, with obviously very serious, more real-life consequences there, but just kind of show how the horror of the character, the the cruelty of the character, and just to kind of make something a little more, make him feel just a little bit more believable by kind of connecting that Jack the Ripper mythos to this fictional character. And it just, I think, and the way the patrol defeats him, it's not by really like throwing punches. It's again, not really a typical paint by numbers superhero story. This isn't just like where you have the superheroes and the supervillain throwing down. This is just something that has to be dealt with in a much more unique way, a very atypical way. And as we find out in the course of this episode, it's Rita who saves the day by freeing all those butterflies from their captivity, which are numerous souls that Red Jack has transformed and trapped under glass to feed off their pain and suffering. So not exactly your typical, Superman flies in to save the day type resolution to the storyline.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? All these things you've been telling me, for some reason, the image of Pennywise keeps coming into my head. Because they're resurfacing evil in like every 27 years with Pennywise, the fact that he feeds on fear himself, one could almost equate him to being like a Stephen King kind of character because of that, because he's so sort of atypical. And, just like in It, obviously not to not go down the It part too much.
Right. No,
but,
it's fair. I think it's a fair comparison.
But our Losers Club kind of defeat him in a rather unorthodox way. So that's why... the way you were just describing it to me, I just kept getting Pennywise It vibes.
Everyone, this is exactly why I wanted to talk this with Nick, because he gives such great insights. And this is no exception, because I hadn't really considered the It comparison, the Pennywise comparison, but I think you're absolutely spot on with that. I think that, you have this kind of supernatural type being almost, very powerful, extremely powerful, more powerful than the heroes. But yet, the heroes, in this case, the Doom Patrol, they have to come up with a very unusual, unexpected way of dealing with him. And in the resolution to that, you're exactly right. It does kind of remind me of the Losers Club. Very Stephen King, almost, you almost expect Red Jack to be coming out holding a red balloon, which I thought would have been hilarious if they had done that, now that I think about it.
It would have been fantastic.
That would have been a magical moment, wouldn't it? Yes. And hey, red balloon would have gone perfect with his color scheme. So
exactly. Accessorize, man.
Exactly. You have this whole red theme going. You got the nice long red overcoat, and you've got red in the name. Why not go all out? Just do the red balloon and give us all a big smile. All right, fabulous. So yeah, he's only appeared in a couple of issues. Now the differences between the TV version and the comic book version. Originally, Red Jack doesn't kidnap Negative Man. In the comic books, he kidnaps the Doom Patrol member Lodestone, who we saw in the Season 1 episode Doom Patrol Patrol. She was the one with the magnetic powers. Yeah. And with the intent that he wanted to father a child with her.
Ooh, okay.
And then the Doom Patrol obviously goes after her to rescue her, and they end up distracting Red Jack long enough for Crazy Jane, not Rita, to free his butterfly collection. So that was a little different. And then Lodestone is the one who wakes up from her coma to fatally stab Red Jack with a knife instead of the chief.
Right. Okay.
So a little different there, but basically the same, the same plot line, but just with different Doom Patrol members. So I just thought I'd mention that really quickly.
Sounds great. I definitely want to pick that up.
Yeah, and I highly recommend it. So if nothing else, this is part of my ongoing campaign to get Nick to read Grant Morrison, Richard K's Doom Patrol. So hopefully, I hope it's working. All right, so we're going to do 4 topics today. first topic, this one should be rather obvious. Red Jack and the Chief. So let's start off with our big bad for the episode, or freak of the week, if you will, a little bit. The Red Jack, obviously, as we were teased at the end of last week's episode that we discussed, he gets a hold of Negative Man, and the Doom Patrol has to rescue Negative Man. So it's in this version, the TV version, it's the Chief and Rita that go after him to rescue him, and the Chief ends up being tempted by Red Jack, as I talked about a little bit, tempted with that immortality, because Red Jack, it seems senses a little bit of a kindred spirit in the Chief, which I'm sure the Chief isn't exactly flattered by, given who Red Jack is. But Red Jack tries to convince him, and it's only when Niles refuses him that Red Jack ends up turning on him and tries to add him to his butterfly collection. So what did you make of this rather, and this is saying a lot for this show, unusual villain for Doom Patrol?
Well, you know what, we had had the pleasure of spending some time with Dr. Time last week. So talk about flamboyant villains, and we both kind of agreed he wasn't really much of a villain because the guy was just hanging out and having a good time.
Yeah.
This is definitely more of a villain because, obviously the guy is a total psychopath. He's psychotic, evil. Use whatever adjective you want to use to describe him, a negative one for sure. But I thought it was interesting that we actually got to see Red Jack and meeting Niles Calder as a child when, he's in Whitechapel. In fact, as soon as you see Whitechapel, it's synonymous with Jack the Ripper.
Right. I've actually been to Whitechapel, interestingly enough. That was when I was vacationing in England. Lori and I took the tube up to Whitechapel, and not nearly as impressive as you think it would be. It's a little bit of a rundown town. I don't know if you've been there.
Yes, I have. Yes, it is.
So you know what I'm talking about then.
Yeah. I think if it's properly lit, it probably would look creepy, like any maybe side street.
But we were there the day, but it was a very overcast day when we were there, but I'm sure at night it probably feels very creepy.
Yeah,
I have to think because we didn't do it. We didn't do the Ripper tour or anything while we were there. So.
Oh, okay. No, I would next time you go, I would strongly suggest it because they do obviously take you to the various places, or at least the known places where certain victims of Jack the Ripper were found. Obviously because he mainly killed prostitutes, and so they knew various prostitutes hang out. But that aside, I thought it was interesting that we got to see the Chief as a child, and the fact that yes, he barely flinches when he sees Red Jack killing this woman. And that's probably why he says, that because that resonates with Red Jack for years and years and years, because he sees that one moment. It's like, in that moment we connected because you didn't cry out, you didn't flinch, you didn't do anything. And that's why maybe he sees, like you were saying, that kindred spirit, because he says, maybe he doesn't have the feelings another person would have. It's not that maybe he would enjoy doing this, but he just doesn't, have that, he doesn't want to scream, or he's not squeamish.
That empathy.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think the Chief is, like you said, I think he's a character that is probably lacking a little bit of empathy, and maybe is a little bit of a sociopath himself.
Yeah, he might be slightly sociopathic. Yeah,
but obviously, I don't think to the degree of Red Jack, at least not by all appearances, anyway.
No, not at all. But also the fact that you evidently, from this that talk they have. We also get the feeling that Red Jack and the Chief have known each other for a long time, and this wasn't, it wasn't just
wasn't their first encounter, obviously.
Yeah,
yes.
That he probably had visited the Chief, or the Chief had encountered him, down the line during his life. Yeah. I thought what I thought was really crazy was the mind trips that Red Jack has the Chief go down. Having him experience what it meant to be Robot Man at one point. And
which I thought was a very fitting
fate
for the Chief, considering what he did to Cliff. And that's probably one of the reasons why he decides, like, maybe I need to kind of upgrade Cliff's body a little bit later on.
because he got to experience it himself and was like, yeah, this might not be the best.
Yeah.
I can see why Clip is complaining.
It's like maybe this is why he's dropping F-bombs every other word.
Exactly. Now he knows. What I thought was, but yeah, and probably he just admires, like he openly says, what the chief did with the Doom Patrol. Because, like, you took these people, you kind of tore them apart, and you kind of tortured them. In his eyes, it's almost like torturing them. That's why he loved. That's why maybe he also sees a kindred spirit, because you created these people by making them go through the worst things, be it mental anguish, physical anguish, and that's maybe why he sees that.
And now that they continue to suffer because of what he did to them.
And so it's an ongoing.
That little bit of sadism, I think, is that why Red Jack kind of identifies with the chief a little bit, is that he's capable of causing great pain, and so maybe that's why he sees like, I can maybe work with this a little bit, and that's why he makes a gesture. He actually reaches out to the chief and offers him like, well, maybe you should become my apprentice, and but the chief was adamant. He doesn't want any part of this. And that's obviously ultimately, like I talked about, kind of sets Red Jack to kind of turn on him a little bit, because the chief doesn't, even though, he may be tempted by that offer of immortality, that's not the type of immortality he wants. He just wants to live long enough to live one day longer than his daughter. And for the world's sake, for his daughter's sake, what have you. And he has no interest in this. But so Red Jack feels a little spurned, I think, maybe he had set his hopes on the chief accepting, and feels a little rejected as a result.
I think he definitely does. And I think that reminder of, I will give you immortality, but you have to be my apprentice and literally kind of endure watching folks suffer, is maybe also another reminder of what we were talking about, to borrow once again from Once Upon a Time, the whole thing that magic comes with a price.
Right.
And it might be also Red Jack reminding us that if you do want something like this, you are going to have to make some sort of sacrifice.
Yeah. And it's nothing comes free, and there's obviously strings attached to this one, big time.
That's right.
But since you obviously haven't read the comics in this regard, so obviously this is your introduction to Red Jack. So what did you make of him as a villain? Did you find him intriguing, enigmatic? Would you like to see more of the character?
You know what? He's very particular in that his language, I found, was very interesting, as in, he's not your usual kind of, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that kind of thing. He's very poetic in his own way. Sometimes so poetic that it's almost like trying to listen to Shakespeare and trying to say, what is he saying exactly?
Right.
Because he does get a little bogged down
he tends to flourish a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. But I love the design. The design was incredible. I thought the fact that one side of his face kind of almost seemed like his brain or whatever, side of like open flesh.
Yes.
Was visually arresting, and the fact that he walks around with these pins in his head, literally kind of like a pinhead, if you will. Mm-hmm. No pun intended, for reference to Hellraiser.
This is the Victorian version of Pinhead. From Hellraiser films, yeah.
That could be where Pinhead got his ideas. Like, I like this Red Jack. He's got style.
Exactly. I'm going to go for a more retro theme. So maybe if I take that, Red Jack, and I kind of like update it a little bit, I think that's a good look for me. What do you think?
So I did also get that kind of Cenobite kind of feel to it as well, because he obviously wants to inflict pain on himself to feel something.
Right.
So. And even when Niles stabs him, he almost seems to be enjoying it, because it's like he's inflicting pain on himself and he laps it up. He actually was saying, at some point, I think I went through the pain of loneliness or isolation, but it got boring after a while. Words to that effect.
Yes.
So he's not loath to actually inflicting pain on himself. So it's not just a question of hurting others, he's more than happy to hurt himself as well. So it is kind of sadomasochism, I suppose one could say.
I think you're absolutely right. He almost did kind of seem like he got off on it a little bit. Because if you think about it, I mean, if this guy is purporting to be God, being so powerful, the idea that he could be distracted by the release of the butterflies and that allows the chief to kind of go at him with the knife, it seems almost like that's too easy, like that shouldn't have worked. So you almost kind of have to wonder if, well, was that maybe Red Jack's plan all along to have the chief stab him? And maybe that would be a way of kind of corrupting him a little bit.
Or even just kind of like, if you won't join me, at least I'll feel something. I'll get my fix, as it were, so I can find something else.
Exactly. Or just happen to be one of those. Well, like, okay, you got me on this one. Whoops. All right. All right. I guess I'll have to give you this one. All right.
Well, and you being read in the comics, Charles, were you satisfied with the Red Jack we got on screen?
I was mostly satisfied. Yeah. Obviously, I think this episode probably would have benefited by being a two-parter. A little bit. It did feel a little rushed to me, having read the comics. But I understand that this. For one thing, this is only a 9-episode season, so they kind of have to move things along. But I'm glad we actually got to see the character, and for the most part, he's very faithful to Morrison and Case's vision. So I can't fault them for that at all. So. Yeah, I'd say I'm about maybe 90% satisfied with the depiction. I thought it was very well done, and certainly could have been a lot worse. So,
yeah, of course. See, I'm glad you say that, because being optimistic there, saying could have been way worse than what we got.
Yeah,
so, and being the fan,
that's the little bit of realist that creeps in every so often. It's like, well, it's like it was way better than I thought. But it could have been worse. So I guess I should be thankful, right? So I guess maybe being more pragmatic about it.
It's constructive criticism.
Exactly. And it's certainly no slight, because I thought the costuming was great. The character looked great. I thought it was amazing that we even got his little crown. That we see his headpiece. So I was very satisfied with that. So top marks to the costume department and the makeup department.
Because I had not seen such an impressive crown since Hela's crown in Thor Ragnarok, so that says a lot.
Exactly, and it kind of it made the character that, because I think what appealed to me most was that the character was so visually interesting.
Yeah,
and I was glad to see that conveyed on screen here as well. All right, anything else about the Chief or Red Jack?
No, I think that's pretty much it. The only thing I kind of had to slap myself for is having mentioned the French toast thing, which happened in this episode, not the previous one. So I want to apologize to the listeners for having maybe spoiled something. Granted, it's not a major spoiler, but I just want to
shame on you, sir. Shame.
So I will flog myself for that one.
All right,
so
all right.
so I just wanted to.
Break out the wet noodle and start flagellating yourself with that.
Exactly. So I just wanted to set the record straight.
Yeah, good. Like that one priest in the Da Vinci Code with the. I don't know if you saw that movie or not, but
yes,
you know what I'm talking about. Paul Bettany's priest character in that. Yes,
that's right. Yeah. Before his vision days.
Exactly, pre-vision. Exactly. All right. Topic number 2. Let's move on a little bit. Larry and Rita. Now, obviously, they play a major part in this Red Jack storyline as well, because Larry's been kidnapped, tortured by Red Jack in a very interesting way. And Rita, because they have this bond, is adamant about going to his rescue. And thankfully, one of the things I really appreciated about this was that it was a great excuse to flash back and give us the story of the day that Larry arrived at Dew Manor, and him forming that friendship with Rita, which you would think would be, a character, what we saw of Rita in season 1, that Larry would be the last person she would reach out to. but she's one of the first that reaches out to him, and it was a great way to establish that great friendship that those two characters seem to have. So I guess my question here is, one, what did you make of the formation of that friendship, and then two, how that friendship is exemplified as Rita tries to help rescue Larry from Red Jack?
Well, as we have said before, the use of flashbacks in this show are very poignant. Unlike Arrow, may Arrow rest in peace, but still there was those flashbacks. That's right, yeah, exactly. Charles doing the sign of the cross, ladies and gentlemen,
exactly.
So he's being respectful. But no,
I'll pour one out for Arrow here. No,
exactly, pouring out for our homie.
My homies, yes, exactly.
But I love the fact of the use of flashbacks because they're so functional and they just keep enriching the tapestry of the whole series. That's what I think is so beautiful about it. And I have to also hand it to wardrobe for how they dress Rita, because we're doing the Oscars podcast. You see these actors, these kind of old-timey actresses in these beautiful dresses. And I love I have to
the glamour to it.
I have to definitely hand it to wardrobe in that case, because they really are doing a fantastic job with her dresses, which is odd for a guy to say, but there you go.
No, that's okay. You're securing your manhood. You feel comfortable expressing, and besides, you're also you're in Italy. As one of the fashion capitals of the world, so.
I kind of have to show a little bit of good taste, I suppose.
Exactly.
But yeah, aside from wardrobe, I love the first time they meet. It's very awkward, I think, more on Larry's part than hers, because he comes in kind of almost stumbling with all this gear, and barely able to walk with what he's wearing. It's a hazmat suit times 100.
Right.
So he's kind of coming in with this kind of ultra hazmat suit.
It's like a cross between a hazmat suit and a deep diver's suit.
That's right. If they had a baby, that's what you'd have.
Yeah, it's just like he's having to carry around a tank, that presumably allows him to breathe or whatever. But he's having to lug all this clunky equipment, and and Rita is the one who gets to explain to him, well, hey, the chief kind of developed these bandages for you. Yeah. So you won't have to wear all this clunky stuff and can feel at least a little bit more liberated.
That's right. It's a beautiful scene, and I just love how warm she is to him and how all smiles. She only has that one moment where she seems a little bit disturbed when she actually gets to see what is under the hood, as it were.
Right.
But she keeps it together, and I love how she keeps it together. Because I think Larry can tell that she's uncomfortable, but she is able to pull it back immediately, not kind of, flinching or kind of like, oh my God, he's a monster kind of thing. So I love that as well. And I think she always tries to give him positive reinforcement throughout, both in the past, and we see it also today in inverted commas, like last time when he was about to go to the funeral. She says, "You look so dapper," and I love I love how you're looking great, and I love that about her, and I think this is a really beautiful relationship that we're getting to see more and more of. What were your thoughts on this relationship?
Yeah, I mean, I just absolutely adore April Bowlby as Rita Farr. I think she's absolute perfection in the role. I love that she plays Rita, not of this time. She plays her as a throwback, a genuine throwback to that 50s movie star, and. Obviously, her attitudes have updated, but the essence of who she is, and maybe it's that facade that we know that Rita is, that she puts on. It carries through, and it's so beautiful to watch. But what I really love about Rita is where, you get to see, that maybe it's because she and the Negative Man were like the first Doom Patrol members of that of the current incarnation of the Doom Patrol, that maybe she saw Larry as a fellow monster that needed someone to care about them, and so maybe Rita kind of took like almost a motherly type interest
Yeah.
or sisterly or what have you, that like I'm going to look after this guy. And like you said, she was a little repulsed, but I think that was just, she quickly overcomes that and doesn't, she doesn't fixate on it. She's focused on helping Larry adjust, and the two of them just become so close knitted together. Almost, it's it's a very strong friendship that they have, and it's one of the things I think that gives Doom Patrol the series its heart, is to see that relationship.
The embrace they share at the end of this episode, right, is just. I'm not going to say I cried or it brought me to tears, but I thought it was a full circle of the flashback we had seen. And I thought it was one of the few really tender moments we get in this series in right. general. I thought that was beautiful when Larry just kind of is about to go to his room, then turns around and embraces. I thought that was really, really a really nice moment.
Yeah, and she and especially when poor Larry is tortured by Red Jack. He's basically hung in a room with other people that are being killed slowly by Larry's radiation. So basically, this is one of Larry's biggest nightmares, that someone would be, killed because he's so afraid of connecting with anybody. He's so afraid of touching anybody because he's afraid. And he makes that comment to Rita about, will you still talk to me if I give you radiation poisoning? And which is a very poignant line. But, Rita obviously proves this, that because she later in the episode, when she needs to, she goes in there to rescue Larry. She's the one that gets him off those hooks. And, even when the radiation is burning her body, she still does what it takes to rescue him because she loves him and cares about him and wants to help him. So, and it just shows, again, like I said, this great deep friendship they have. And it's very refreshing. The two people that you really wouldn't see connecting in such a way. It's pretty beautiful to watch, I think.
The most unlikely, I think, of characters to really bond, as it were. But also, I think she maybe wanted to redeem herself for what had happened with Dr. Time in the previous episode. And she's like, I made a major blunder on that one. I'm not going to screw this one up.
Right.
And so...
Well, especially where Larry's concerned, she doesn't want to screw that up.
Yeah, I think there was also that. And when it came to the torture scene, yeah. I wonder... whether they were using the same set from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
It's
at least
possible.
the remake, not the original remake.
I see what you're saying. So, who knows? Maybe it was an homage, perhaps.
It could, because those meat hooks once again made me go to the remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, of course. Now that I think about it, Hellraiser did have kind of those meat hooks as well.
Also, yeah. So I don't know. Maybe our writers and such have a penchant for horror movies or slasher films, for all we know.
Possibly.
Or they watch them for reference.
Yeah, maybe they're just very heavily influenced by them, but I think you're right. Certainly a possibility, but I really enjoyed that, and I love seeing Rita and Larry together. I think they're just magic on screen together.
Fantastic! Yeah, great performances.
All right. Anything else about these characters?
No, I think that's pretty much it, and I think knowing what we know, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I love where we're going with both these characters, and I'm so glad, and I'm going to say this, I think, so I'm blue in the face, how much I'm loving Rita this season, and I'm kicking myself saying, you fool, how dare you not like her in the first season, now you're loving on her,
They got you. They
did.
They got you, just had to wait. Obviously we're a few episodes ahead of where we're recording right now because, hey, we watch ahead. We're like you guys. You guys are current. We're just recording a little behind. So we kind of know what's coming up. But, obviously, and you guys know as well, probably, So you know what we're meaning, what we're hinting at, and it just obviously this is not going to be the last we talk about Larry and Rita.
No, it's definitely not over.
Nope, not over by a long shot, and that's good. That's a good thing for this show. All right, topic number 3. Let's talk about Vic and Ronnie. Mm-hmm. So more of Vic, his growing closer to Ronnie Evers, who was introduced in the previous episode as a member of his traumatic victims support group, who they get even closer in this episode. Very, very close, as it turns out. And finally, Vic gets a little sweet loving down by the fire as he and Ronnie end up back at her place. And, one thing leads to another. And they make love. And so...
yay for cyborg sex!
Exactly. Yeah, so this definitely brings new meaning to the term cybersex, I guess, in this case. But yeah, so I guess for anybody wondering, yes, Cyborg can have sex, apparently. All right. So they established that. And interestingly, in the process, we get to see more of Ronnie, the physical trauma she endured in this one, because we see that she's a very tragic burn victim. And later in a couple episodes after this one, we find out exactly how she was burned, which we'll talk about later. But for you, the question I want to pose to you is, what do you make of these two characters growing closer, and their respective traumas being the kind of like the thing that brings them together?
Well, you know what? It almost maybe mirrors Rita and Larry to a certain extent, because they find common ground mm-hmm. in being monsters.
They relate to one another. Yeah,
it could almost be a reflection of they find that common ground in being different, as it were, or being scarred or being changed by their experiences. Obviously, Cyborg, has had the 1,000,001 things happen to him, which made him cyborg. Ronnie has her issues and having been scarred herself. So they find, I think, just like at a meeting, that's why they find that common ground. I think it was one of the few predictable things in this season. I'm not holding it against the show for this happening, because I think, you can't throw surprises all the time. Right. Something is that you are going to have to go by the numbers with something. It's just logic. And we both saw this coming, that they would, get intimate and have sex. So I think it was predictable. What I was wondering though at first was, once they, when the pillow talk ensues, and it's very odd pillow talk, after the fact.
Right.
Is how almost standoffish she suddenly becomes afterwards, because he's still kind of in bed, wanting to kind of cuddle and all this kind of thing. Usually, and it's interesting, because I'm with you, bro, because I'm that kind of guy. But because I know there are other guys who are not like that. But we're not going to. This is not the podcast to discuss what you do after sex. But
it's not. Well, I gotta. All right, that's it. I'm out of here.
Yeah, you're out of here.
I'm obviously in the wrong podcast. No, I'm just kidding.
No, because he's like, kind of, and he's kind of showing his feelings to her. He's like, I think there's something special between us, and he's kind of letting her know that he'd like to see more of her. And she kind of like hops out the bed, starts getting dressed, and he's kind of like, what the hell, girl,
Yeah. It's a nice little play on expectations there. And, typically the guy would be the one, looking for the exits.
Getting dressed.
Well, that was great, but gotta go. Got things to do, and typically the woman would be like, but can't you just stay a while and we can?
Well, when will I see you again?
Yeah, exactly. And so it's almost like, they're playing off that expectation a little bit with Ronnie and Vic, flipping the gender roles a little bit, at least the stereotypical gender roles, and Ronnie being the one who's more into the one night stand than the relationship. So Vic is obviously the one who's going to have to work a little harder to win her over. they make plans, and then, he gets stood up later in the episode, and, she does send him an email talking about her past and some terrible things she's done. And
you called that one, Charles.
Yeah.
You actually called it.
Yep. Yeah.
It probably has something
going on in her past. Yeah, exactly.
You called it.
Exactly. So, that was the case. And then, he gets up and, he watches her leave, from his car.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. He leaves the restaurant. That's right. I was trying to.
She's in her car.
Yeah, she's in her car watching him.
Yes.
Yeah, basically he gets stood up. Like, they were supposed to meet at this place, and all he gets is an email from her, and she's still actually watching him from the car. So, do you think there was more to that? Perhaps that maybe, I don't want to be too cynical about this, but do you think that maybe there was a reason that she stood him up, or do you think it was just fear on her end?
I think it's maybe she's afraid she doesn't want to be hurt again. So all we know is maybe she's had previous relationships post what has happened to her, and they've always been a letdown, and she's always kind of had her heart broken. And already having suffered everything she's had on a physical level, maybe she doesn't want to add being emotionally broken as well. And maybe I think almost she's trying to not want to give herself false hopes. That's maybe why she shakes it off with him, kind of like, yeah, it was fun. And then she kind of is like, let's not make this a thing and such.
Like,
so maybe
she's afraid to get into that commitment.
I think she maybe doesn't want to maybe face her feelings that she possibly might like Vic and might want to have more with him, but she kind of is checking herself saying, I don't want to get hurt. So she's maybe shielding herself or putting up a wall, if you will, and not wanting that wall to come down just yet because she's afraid that she'll expose herself and be even more vulnerable. So it could be coming from a fear of being vulnerable again, like she had been when she was had all her various accidents.
Yeah, she was injured. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it could be a fact of just wanting to not be vulnerable.
I hope that's the case, because I'd hate to think, maybe it's just because, again, I've read like 18,000 comic books, more than 18,000 comic books, but hey, that maybe she's working for someone, and maybe this is all part of this big manipulative plan. But hopefully that's not the case.
So you're in the back of your mind thinking she might be playing him.
I think there's a possibility. I'm not saying she is at the moment.
Theoretically.
But I think there's potential there. So we'll see.
It's like get close to him maybe lure him in.
Exactly. So
get him to trust you.
It wouldn't surprise me if she's trying to win his confidence and playing hard to get as a result to make him even more attracted to her.
Yeah, exactly. Sparking his interest because he's like, she's not head over heels for me, so he's going to want to fight for the girl, and so
exactly. So that's
reeling him in.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of, just just a little tease to make him go after it, and then hooking him and reeling him in, like you said, to use the fishing metaphor that you so lovely set up. All right. So hopefully I'm wrong on that. We'll see. But
I hope so. I hope you are, to be honest.
Because I'm rooting for these two crazy kids, and if nothing else, I love the fact that this is giving Cyborg something to do. His own storyline. Maybe he's not connected to the team per se, but it makes him like have his own thing, and I think it's helping to show a different side of him that we didn't get to see in season 1.
And not just be, the token superhero that everybody knows from Justice League or Titans, as it were.
Right. Yeah. I think right now, compared, nothing against Ray Fisher in Justice League, but I have to give points to Joyvan Wade. As far as I'm concerned, he's the Cyborg right now. He's the main Cyborg actor right now.
I will agree.
He's the guy doing more with the character. We're learning more about the character than we ever got in Zack Snyder's Justice League or Joss Whedon's Justice League. Take your pick. And
Zack Whedon, as it were.
Zack Whedon, exactly. Or Josh Snyder. Joss Snyder, I should say.
But it's interesting to bring that up.
But you know what I'm talking about here.
It's interesting you bring that up because actually, Joyvan Wade reached out to Ray Fisher saying to him, I really loved what you did. And there's actually, I think, a nice article about it. I can't remember what website it was, but there was actually an article about the two of them comparing notes on the character and Joyvan Wade actually really enjoying Ray Fisher. So it was kind of cool that they have that thing going on.
Well, Ray Fisher put out a statement on Twitter or somewhere that he's like, look, Joyvan Wade is my guy. And if you go after him, you go after me. And so it's kind of like this little cyborg bromance almost.
Yeah, there is a cyborg brotherhood going on.
There is. It's like a cybernetic bromance going on. But either way, it's kind of nice that that Ray was like, looking out for Joyvan Wade and didn't want maybe Ray's fans to hate on the character just because he's not Ray.
That's right. Yeah, but it's true though. They did give him a lot more to do. Granted, we know what a mess Justice League was.
Exactly. And I'm guessing a Snyder cut is not going to fix it. But we'll see. Exactly. All right, but I wouldn't put money on it. Let's just put it that way. All right. Let's talk about topic number 4. Let's talk about Cliff and Jane. Unless you had anything else you want to talk about.
No. I'm good to move on.
All right. So let's move on. Cliff and Jane. Cliff has finally had enough and is ready to hit the road. Decides to finally try to confront his daughter at long last. Something that we've been wanting to see for a while now. So he hits the road with Jane in tow. Jane's got her own thing going on. A rather important one because, hey, she's kind of having an internal revolt among her various personalities. And she's having this very important struggle for her own identity.
Yeah, the whole primary thing. There's definitely, to put it mildly, there's a rumble in the underground.
Exactly. So there's a lot going on here in this segment. Do you want to talk about Cliff first, or you want to talk about Jane first?
You know what? Let's look first maybe a little bit about Jane, since it segues well since we were just talking about her. Yeah. Every time we get to see the underground, I am a happy camper because it's always so much fun to see. Granted, okay, it's not the best circumstances when we get to see it because we know that something's wrong when we get to actually see the underground, but. Yeah, as you were saying, it carries on what we got to see in the previous episode of the whole thing of her fighting as primary for wanting to be, the primary persona when it came to all the various personalities. And I love the fact we got to see a little bit more of the other personalities, which we hadn't really gotten to see too much of in the first season. And yeah, you can definitely see that it's a big time intervention, and everybody's like telling her, so things have got to be done here. A change has to be made. It's time for a change and what have you. But it's rather a very forceful one this time because, we tried talking to you. We're going to do an intervention. And if you're not going to come quietly, we're going to have to get rough.
Yeah, and so their other personalities are frustrated by the way Jane is overseeing things right now. They want her to stop being a part of the Doom Patrol. They want her to stop looking after Dorothy. And they're like, you should be focused on the girl, meaning, Kay Chalice. And, their core persona. And stop worrying about everybody else, and Jane is going, look, the Doom Patrol is my family. They're the ones that have been looking out for me. And even though they drive me insane, from time to time, they're the ones that I need, and so there's this conflict growing between them, and ultimately Jane gets locked in the cell because other personas are looking to prove a point.
Yeah. And do you justify them doing that? Are you in agreement with the persona?
In a way, I get where they're coming from because, obviously, most of the personalities have been so focused on like, okay, you know, even though we all have our own individual identities, we still look after Kay. We're still focused on Kay, and they see Jane as taking their eye off the ball. And you know, they even mention, if I'm not mistaken, they talk about Miranda, the previous primary, and so they bring her up and as a way to kind of show like, well, you know, we did have one previous primary. We could always replace you as well if you don't get your act together. And Jane is just beside herself because Jane has just been numbing herself with drugs and just not wanting to cope with anything since finding out what the chief did, feeling so betrayed by him that you know, she just that it's her wanting to numb herself is affecting the others, and so it's upsetting the balance. And as a result, they just feel like this is it. You know, here's our ultimatum. You know, you either do this and you do this, or you're out of here. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it is. They do very much put it down to it's our way or the highway kind of thing.
Right.
But I mean, I do understand where they're coming from, but I also think maybe they could also see that. Granted, the chief did not behave in the best way, but they can maybe see that the rest of the Doom Patrol might actually be beneficial to Jane as a whole. But they almost see them as a threat to their ultimate goal of protecting, you know, Kay, which I think is curious. I mean, either there's envy there that she bonds more with them than she bonds with the other personalities. It could be almost a jealousy.
Right.
It's like, you know, why can't we have that with?
Well, I think there's something to that. I think they do feel threatened by Jane's connection to the Doom Patrol. That maybe Jane, as the primary, would realize that maybe she didn't need the other personalities anymore. Like, and as a result, you know, become more whole in the process, and so. The other personalities are like they maybe they see this as an existential threat. Like if if
she finds friends, we don't have a role anymore, and she might try and get rid of us somehow.
Exactly. So maybe they're just they're frightened for their own existence, and as a result, they're lashing out and acting up and putting Jane at conflict right now. So
it is, I think, maybe a protective mechanism or a kind of a, you know, we have to preserve ourselves as well.
Exactly. You know, and because I do think they kind of see themselves as all the various personalities kind of balance one another, and they see, I think, Jane upsetting that balance, and you know, and maybe there's, like you said, or like we were talking about, that maybe there's a little bit of insecurity and fear. That that maybe, you know, Jane will become find, you know, that what she needs from them instead of the other personalities. Like you said,
for who I am,
exactly.
They take care of me, so it's like I don't need you guys anymore.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I think it's this battle for their continued existence. I think that maybe they're afraid that they won't be needed anymore, will be discarded, and I don't think a lot of them are obviously ready for that.
No,
so
not at all.
Not at all. But and meanwhile, while all this is going on, Cliff, Cliff, Cliff manages to do the thing that we've been wanting him to do for quite a while, wanting him to reach out to his daughter, let her know that he's alive, maybe trapped in a robot body, something against his will because, hey, you know, the chief was behind it all. But, you know, at least reach out. But Cliff managed to do this in the most Cliff way possible. And as a result, it's just like his automobile accident, it flames out in spectacular fashion.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a familiar phrase involving a dog comes to
It
mind,
crashes
but I'm
and
not gonna,
burns, just like his accident. Yes.
yeah, I'm not gonna, yeah, exactly. I mean, folks know what
Yes.
yeah, but I'm not, since, we want to keep it clean on this podcast, I'm just
Right.
say, remember a certain pooch, and that's all I'm gonna say when it comes to this situation.
Yes. Yeah. So they go down to Florida. Cliff goes to his daughter's home, intending him to hey, I'm alive, and finds out, oh hey, she's pregnant with Cliff's grandchild,
Yeah.
and she's having a baby shower, and it's not exactly the best timing, shall we say?
And she's not exactly either thrilled to see him either.
No, because as far as she knows, her father's dead. Who is this guy dressed like this showing up claiming to be my dad? And he has to convince her. He tries to convince her, look, I left you the watch and I did all this. And she starts to do this, but she starts to kind of okay, maybe I believe you, but I can't deal with this right now. Maybe it's because, hey, I'm pregnant and I'm very emotional right now, or I've got all this stuff going on and I can't process this at this moment in time.
Plus, I've got friends coming over.
Yeah, friends exactly. So how am I going to explain that? Oh, hey, my dad's alive and he's trapped in a robot body. Not exactly the best icebreaker. So he, but he presses the issue. At that point, a sane, rational person would have gone okay, you need time to process this. Here's where I'll be staying. Please give me a call. But Cliff, because he's so emotional and tells you exactly what he thinks of you, wears his opinions on his sleeve, is look.
You can't take no for an answer.
Can't take no for an answer. Exactly. You're absolutely right. Cannot take no for an answer. So he's just he keeps pressing the issue. And then he gets angry to make matters worse, because the more he presses that issue, the more she doesn't want to deal with it. She shuts down, and which angers him, to the point where look, this is going to happen, and it causes enough of a scene that the cops show up, and at first he starts pounding on his bus, the van, and he has to tell the cops, well, hey, it's my van. I can do what I want to my van, right? And the cops are like, well, yeah, legally he's kind of got us there. So,
and then he starts hassling people who are coming to the house.
Yeah, he's standing on top of the van and yelling things from across the street, making this huge, obnoxious scene.
Yeah,
and
making a total jackass.
Total ass of himself, exactly. So I'm sure I kind of know what you're thinking about this as you watched it, but did you just feel bad for Cliff, or just wanted to smack him upside the head, going, "What the hell are you doing?"
A bit of both. First off, you'd think he would realize his daughter was no longer a child anymore. I mean, he shows up with the stuffed giraffe, which is, it's at first oh, it's very sweet, but you're like, dude,
yeah,
she's probably not a kid anymore. I don't know if she's going to appreciate a stuffed giraffe. I mean, look, granted, there are grown women who love plush toys. I'm not saying that, but he obviously meant as a present for a little girl.
He still sees her as a little girl, yeah, because that was the last time he saw her. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of you should have maybe done the math before you left, saying, how old roughly will she be at this time? How long have I been away?
Right. Well, he did. He saw her there at that bar, in the crocodile episode. So he knew that she was an adult, but it just didn't connect in his head that I should be maybe treating her like an adult.
Yeah, because he has that idealized version of the little girl opening the door going, "Daddy, you're home," kind of thing,
Yeah, so, and maybe he's a little freaked out that, okay, well, hey, she's pregnant with my grandson. I have a grandson now. So maybe that threw him for a loop. But, yeah, it was just a disaster. It was like a Jerry Springer episode only told through the Doom Patrol lens.
I love that reference.
the Doom Patrol filter, as it were, from a Jerry Springer episode.
It
Cliff,
was.
Cliff, you are the grandfather. Yes. And it just went disastrously wrong. And finally, Cliff realizes maybe, just maybe, I'm a little selfish on this one. And maybe...
Just a tad.
Just a tad. So he's like, maybe we should get out of here. So
yeah, and it's a little late for that, I suppose, because the damage has been done, and you're kind of locking the door once the horses have already fled, as it were. But
now that you freaked out your daughter, and the neighborhood, just alerted the entire neighborhood and all her friends, and but there's this crazed maniac in a robot suit out there claiming to be your father.
I mean, I suppose because he obviously had it all figured out. Because he's like, oh, it's going to be great. We're going to head off. We're going to hug it out. We're going to be best buddies.
I'll take her. It's Florida. I'll take her to Disney World. It'll be great.
Yeah, so he's already has it all planned out. He hasn't thought about, she might freak out, one, telling her you're alive. Two, she sees this giant robot, kind of looking at her. It's like, he maybe should have analyzed it a little bit better. I mean, I appreciate the gesture, as one might say. But, yeah, it wasn't the best laid plan. I mean, it's a Robot Man plan, so it's usually not the best laid plan with Robot Man when he's doing the planning.
Yeah. Robot plans, not the best plans, needless to say.
No.
Robot
but I mean,
plans,
also, but I do think it was nice that Jane decided to come along. I mean, maybe she just wanted to leave, because he's like, you want to go? She's like, F yeah, and so off they go.
But I think that's her excuse to hang with Cliff. I think she enjoys hanging out with Cliff more than
we have seen the
more than because we talked about when we talked about Fun Size Patrol that they kind of seem to enjoy each other's company. And
he had tried in the first season to get close to her. So.
Right, exactly. So even if Jane won't admit it, I think she does enjoy spending time with Cliff and knew how important this was going to be for Cliff. So she wanted to be there for him, but being Cliff, he just turned it into a disaster. So
that's right.
And maybe just Cliff should have, tried to look at it from his daughter's perspective a little bit more and maybe a little bit less from Cliff's perspective. Just saying.
Yeah, it's you should kind of try and look through other people's eyes. The question now is, do you think he's done now with his daughter, or do you think they might be able to patch things up and she might come around?
I think it'll take time. I think, I mean, I don't know if we're actually going to get more this season with this. Maybe we will, but I think maybe when the baby arrives. Because wouldn't that be an interesting bit of... Yeah, you can just picture it in your head, right? The train wreck of Cliff finding out that his daughter is about to give birth to his grandchild. And him wanting to be there for that big moment.
Yeah, that could be a problem. I mean, if they're doing stuff like, a christening or what have you, I can just imagine him like at a church or something.
Yeah. And then just throwing in all the other Doom Patrol weirdness on top of it. That could be a magical episode if they do it right.
Yeah, especially as I said, Cliff kind of breaking into a church, a la, obviously they're kind of going, it's my thing, and the priest going nuts and everything. We're writing a Doom episode for you folks, so take notes.
Yeah, so we're on record for this. So if you guys want to slip us a little something for the effort here, as a creative consultant fee, perhaps, we wouldn't say no. I don't think.
Plus, it could be a nice throwback to The Graduate. Him bursting through the wing. So, hey, you can always do a nice nod to a great film like The Graduate.
Exactly. Just banging on the church and all that. Yeah, it could be a lot of fun. All right. Anything else about this episode? We talked a lot about it.
You know what? I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I was so looking forward to episode 4. Luckily, I know not say luckily. Unluckily, I got to see all 3 episodes. Like, dang, I want episode 4 now, and had to wait for a week.
We actually had to wait a whole week for this. It's like you spoil us with 3 episodes right off the bat, and then you make us wait for the fourth. How dare you, sir?
Yeah,
So,
I was throwing a spoiled brat tantrum at that moment.
You're throwing a cliff tantrum at that moment.
That's right, yeah.
F this.
That was me. Just keeping it clean for that reason. Like,
exactly.
no, great episode. Absolutely.
No, I will have to say, we've heard some Cliff rants before, but Cliff in this episode was just beyond Cliff with the F-bombs. I mean,
yeah, he took it to the next level.
Totally. I don't see how they could. I mean, I can just imagine, like, if Jesse Jackson watched this episode and just what would be going through his head as he watched that. Just Cliff dropping F-bombs every other word.
Well, and Jesse, if you're listening, definitely check out this episode.
Exactly. Yeah. But obviously, there's more to this episode than, as we've talked about, than just F-bombs. But
sure.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Favorite quotes. Do you have any favorite quotes of the episode?
I actually had two. One was the exchange between Niles and Rita.
Yeah.
Where they're about to go to Red Jack. He's like, Red Jack is a merciless being who feeds on the suffering of others. I cannot do this alone. He's like, I'm on the fence, and that's your sales pitch.
That's a great line. Yeah.
And then one that I love about from Rita is lost causes aren't lost if there's someone to fight with them. I think that was beautiful.
Yeah, that was, she makes a great point to Larry, who sees himself as a lost cause.
Yeah.
And, it was another great way for Rita to reach out to him. I really enjoyed that. I liked the signal man, when Crazy Jane arrives for intervention, and the signal man, one of her personalities says, as you guessed, this is an intervention. And Crazy Jane replies, your face is an intervention.
I'll have to use that sometime.
That's a good one. And then Rita with Larry talking. Rita says, sunlight is very important for one's mood, And Larry responds, so is not being captive by a shadowy government organization.
Another great one for sure. Yeah.
And then lastly,
yep.
My last one, Larry, after he's donned his bandages, and he says, I look like Boris Karloff. And Rita says, you look absolutely stunning. And the turtleneck, very debonair. And Larry replies, will you still talk to me if I give you radiation poisoning?
Yeah, the writing, the writing in this episode was really, really good.
Great dialogue. Yeah. Especially, love the stuff with Rita and Larry. That was just gold, as far as I'm concerned.
Big time.
All right, episode rating. What was your rating, Nick?
I'm going to give this an 8.5 out of 10.
Okay.
I definitely really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm a little bit higher than you, but I think mostly because I was just really happy to see Red Jack on screen. Just a character I always thought would be cool to see. Never expected to see ever. And I got to see him. So I give this one 9 out of 10. Butterflies under glass. The butterflies were definitely quite the addition for sure. Exactly. So Titans Tower news. I don't have much. I just wanted to mention really quickly that we just had the 40th anniversary of the new Teen Titans. Created by Marv Wolfman and George Perez, which of course gave us Cyborg, among others, including Raven, Starfire, and reinvented Beast Boy as Changeling. And then, of course, pairing them up with Robin, Wonder Girl, and Kid Flash. Just thought I'd give that a little bit of a shout-out because, hey, we're Titan Talk. And that, of course, they made their debut in DC Comics Presents number 26 in 1980. So showing some mileage on that one. But one of my favorite comic book super teams ever.
Well, it's a great issue. I actually have it on as both a physical paper copy, and I also own it on digital. And definitely urge folks to pick up a copy of that. I mean, if you can't find it, as a paperback or a trade paperback, you go to lovely places like Comixology or places of this nature. Definitely pick it up because I believe it's actually now that it's on sale as well. So it's like a couple of bucks, and it's definitely a great buy, I think.
Yeah, highly recommended. I love it. I mean, this is one of my favorite comics runs ever. Essentially, at the time, in the 80s, the new Teen Titans was essentially DC's X-Men in terms of popularity. The X-Men, obviously, with Chris Claremont, John Byrne, and Dave Cockrum, it just became this hugely popular book for Marvel. DC, meanwhile, brings back the Titans, who had had moderate success throughout the years, and completely reinvented them and catapulted them into, at the time, equal stardom, I think, to the point where they, even in a Marvel DC crossover, they crossed over the new Teen Titans with the X-Men in Marvel and DC Presents #1.
Oh, there you go.
So if you've ever seen, that's a great story, because with some great artwork by Walt Simonson. Highly recommended.
I will second that for sure.
And you can't go wrong with Darkseid and Dark Phoenix as the bad guys. How great is that, right?
It is. It's definitely a marriage made in hell, as one could say.
Exactly. So if you're a Titans fan looking to get the X-Men or vice versa, that's a great one. I recommend it. All right. We got some feedback once again from Holly Mack. So I'll read that really quickly. Let's see here. Let me pull that up. Okay. So Holly writes in about Pain Patrol. She goes, "Hey, Charles and Nick. A little more backstory about Larry joining the group. Red Jack is someone not to be messed with. The intervention that all of Jane's protectors had was interesting. Felt a bit sorry for Cliff, but I kind of expected that reaction from his daughter." Yeah, I think we would have all been surprised if we hadn't gotten that reaction from his daughter. "The police officers did the right thing by letting Cliff pound on his own bus to get the frustrations out." Yeah, because that could have been a whole scene, right? Have to bring in the whole police force to deal with Cliff. The secretary, the secretary giving Jane the ultimatum about leaving the team to stay primary, I didn't see coming. Wonder if that Wonder if that's not some type of ploy that was planted by Mr. Nobody earlier on, and it's just appearing now. Just a theory.
That's another theory for sure.
Yeah, so Holly's thinking that, Mr. Nobody was behind the problems that Jane's having with her other personalities.
Well, we haven't checked on the painting in a while, so who knows?
You're right. We haven't checked on it since the pilot episode, or the first episode of season 2. You're right. Make sure they're still in there, guys. All in all, a great episode. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin. So thank you, Holly.
Thank you very much indeed, Holly. Always great to hear from you.
Always great to hear from you. And, Holly is kind enough to join us from time to time on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. I'm sure, we'd be perfectly welcome here as well, if so inclined. So I'll just throw out that little invite to Holly.
And also, if I may, Charles, big shout out also to the Five-ish fangirls, of course, of whom Holly is a part of. Great friends of both of ours, so definitely big shout out to them too. Exactly.
So we talk about the Five-ish fangirls on Next Stop Everywhere, but the Five-ish fangirls podcast, great podcast, some wonderful, wonderful people doing that, including, of course, Rachel Friend, who joins you on Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast, and then, of course, Holly Mack and some other wonderful ladies who do great work. So support them if you would. Okay. Highly recommended by this here podcast you're listening to right now. So please check that out. All right. Otherwise, if you want to be like Holly, reach out to us. Please do. Drop us a line at titantalkcast@gmail.com. titantalkcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Love to know what you're thinking about our reviews of Doom Patrol or anything else that's coming up. Maybe episodes that, we haven't covered yet because we're behind a few weeks. Otherwise, you can also reach us on Twitter at Titan Talkcast, on Twitter or Facebook, Titan Talk, the Titans podcast. We'd love it if you liked and follow us there. Help share our links, because, that would help grow our podcast audience. We'd love to reach more people. Love to reach your friends if they're so inclined. And if you deem us worthy, and I hope you do, we would definitely appreciate it. So, Nick, how about you? Where can they reach you?
Well, I would definitely second everything you said there, Charles. When it comes to me, if superhero movies are your speed, and I assume they must be if you're listening to Titan Talk, I do also host the Happiness in Darkness podcast, which you, of course, have been on quite a few times, Charles, and, of course, Holly has as well. And we definitely look forward to having both you and Holly back soon. If you'd like to join me on there and discuss a superhero movie of your choice, feel free to send me an email at happinessanddarknesshow@gmail.com. We're also on social media, where you'll find us as Happiness in Darkness, on Twitter, High Darkness Pod, or on Instagram under Him Darkness. For you country music lovers, I do also host the Whiskey and Cigarettes show, where we play traditional country, today's country, and everything else in between. For more about that and how and where to tune in, visit our website. It's whiskeyandcigarettesshow.com. And finally, as you were touching up on it, Charles, our latest project, Gold Standard, the Oscars Movie Podcast, where with a mutual friend of ours, Zan Sprouse, and of course Rachel Friend from the Five-ish Fangirls, we are reviewing all the movies that won the Oscar for Best Picture from 1927's Wings to the present day. Upcoming on Thursday, next Thursday, the 23rd, we'll be discussing the fourth film to win Best Picture, which will be Cimarron, the first and so far only Western movie to win an Oscar for Best Picture. So should any listeners wish to join us on that, they can message us on Twitter at OscarsGold, Facebook, or send us an email at goldstandardoscars@gmail.com.
Excellent. You notice now that you're doing more of these podcasts, your shameless plugs are taking a little longer, perhaps.
Yes, they are.
Now you know what I'm going. Now you know what I go through when I'm running off my big long spiel.
In fact, because in my head I'm like, oh Lord, here we go. Try and keep it as concise as possible.
It's tricky, isn't it? Yeah, you got to keep all that information straight and keep all the players straight. It's tough.
True. Yep.
As for me, of course. At Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram. Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio. And my blog of geeky things. Come on, you.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot. We're going to talk about all the stuff we talk about here on Titan Talk, including your Titans news, Doom Patrol news, all kinds of comic book TV news, comic book sci-fi news, and news of my other podcasts that I do for Southgate Media, including the aforementioned Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, where I have various people talking Doctor Who, Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, and every so often Nick is kind enough to join us, and will be joining us here very shortly once again, as here in a couple weeks we'll be talking Vincent and the Doctor.
Can't wait for that one.
Which is going to be a lot of fun, especially as we are joined by Martha Southgate on that one, which should be very interesting to hear those two together.
You'll have to treat her right. She's the boss's wife, remember, as they say.
Yeah, that's right. So everybody's going to have to mind your P's and Q's on that one. So otherwise, the Phantom Zone podcast they do with Jesse Jackson, where we're talking the DC Universe series Stargirl, which will soon be the CW exclusive series Stargirl with season 2. Really enjoying that, so I hope you guys check us out there. And of course, Ghost with the Twin Peaks podcast, where yours truly and that Zan Sprouse person that Nick was so kind enough to plug, and I have a ball talking all kinds of Twin Peaks, David Lynch films, and just all around general pop culture nonsense that we love so much. And this week we're going to be reviewing the 2001 David Lynch film Mulholland Drive. And Nick has just recently watched that movie.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear that review.
And has promised to be one of our listeners for that, and has promised to write in.
Yes, I'm a man of my word. So
exactly. So everybody, you want to check that out. Find out Nick's thoughts on the movie as well. So no excuses, guys. You have to listen to this. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Okay. So I hope everybody enjoys that. And in the meantime, though, next time on Titan Talk, of course, we are talking Episode 4 from Doom Patrol Season 2. So Episode 54 will be Sex Patrol.
Oh, yeah. Bring it on.
which is one of the best episode titles of this show has had so far.
And it's not a Pornhub channel. Trust me, it's not part of that.
No, but I'm hoping that the title alone will kind of increase our listenership, our audience.
We should probably put a sponsored by Pornhub.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to be kind of curious to see if our audience download numbers go up noticeably with this episode title. We'll see. But anyway, this is a great episode. Obviously, Nick and I have watched it already, and it's great. We get to hear Abigail Shapiro singing.
Yeah.
We get the return of Danny the Street. We get the return of Morally Corrupt, and from season 1, and Flex Mentallo, and the introduction of the Sex Men. Not the X-Men, the Sex Men.
Yes, and that is not a pornographic parody either.
Right. That's not the porn version of the X-Men movies, but it could be. So you might want to check it out. So if we haven't intrigued you enough, at least while your significant other isn't listening in the room with you, come on back. And Nick, any final thoughts before we sign off?
No, I just really had a blast talking with you again, Charles. It's always a pleasure. I just really love doing this with you. I'm so blessed that you called upon me to assist you with this, and I really appreciate it and look forward to discussing the next episode, which, spoilers, I thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah. This is going to be a fun one to talk about, needless to say. So, Nick, I'm having a ball talking these episodes with you. I'm so glad you joined me on this because you brighten up my day, sir, and hopefully brighten up everyone else's day out there in podcast land.
We do our best. The feeling is more than mutual, and I hope that our listeners just have a great time and have enjoy and forget their troubles for an hour and a half.
Yeah, and if we're doing that, I think we're doing our jobs personally.
Agreed.
So if we can bring a little sunshine to your otherwise cloudy day, we're more than gratified. So everybody, come on back next week, episode 54, Sex Patrol. You knew you can't resist it with an episode title like that. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll see you next time right here, Titan Talk, the Titans Podcast. Goodbye, everyone.
Ciao.